Um, in the scope of what the film is, in terms of the content as well as in terms of the production, where does it rank in, the course of your career? Is it the biggest thing you've ever done?
Sure. I mean, it's the biggest project clearly I've ever done by about double anything I've ever directed. And it's certainly in themes, probably, you know, up there with Good Night and Good Luck in terms of talking about sort of in a in a in a micro level about very big issues. And I was really fascinated with the idea of having this discussion about what we're capable of doing to each other, you know?
And not only this, it's also, to me, it also felt like a film about, the climate crisis, what can really happen when we keep going the way we're going.
Yeah,
Was that sort of one of the draws for you too?
sure. I mean, you know, the idea that we're going to have, the United States of America saying that we're going to ignore science. I mean, we've seen how that's worked with COVID, in a much more rapid case than what's happening with the environment. But yes, if we continue along these lines of denying science, then this isn't a science fiction at all, but it's in fact a documentary. You know.
Hopefully not.
Yeah.
When you take the production part out of it and just look at it as what you had to do for it in terms of acting and being alone in so many scenes,
Yeah.
how do you do this? I mean, yes, there's the crew, but really you're playing a guy that is very much on his own most throughout the movie until
Yeah.
the little girl shows up.
When the little girl shows up, there's something to play off of. The funny thing was, there was a lot of dialogue that we just took out because why am I talking if there's no one to talk to? And that tends to always come off as if we're playing to an audience that isn't supposed to be there. And so I went to Alexander Desplat and I said, I'm going to need you to write dialogue with your score so that I don't have to say anything. So we were able to use score along those lines as opposed to me having to talk, which made it you weren't quite as alone as it felt, you know.
Right. Um, Speaking of Alexander Desplat, he's one of the people that you keep going back to as a
Yes.
director, just like a lot of the actors. I mean, I think Felicity Jones was the first, is the only one, and
David.
Tiffany, who, yeah, and David, yeah. But I mean, you keep working with the same people. Why?
Well, because they have pictures of me in very compromising positions, so I have to. Well, here's the funny thing. You get to work with people that you really enjoy and you really like. And if there's a part that comes up, these parts for Demian and Kyle, for instance, were written for 20-year-olds. But to me, there's no weight to a 20-year-old. There's no emotion to a 20-year-old saying he wants to go home. But to a 55-year-old saying he wants to go home and see his wife and kids, that adds a lot of weight to it. And to listen to Demian tell the story about what, who gets to live and who doesn't, and what time means a lot more when you're somebody with that kind of experience. So, you work with people that you really enjoy and they love what they do. It's kind of helpful.
Well, if you think back on when you were 20 years old, um, what were the films that I mean, was it just taking any job that you got, or did you have kind of an idea of what you wanted to do?
Well, clearly, like when I was 20 and I started acting, it was like Fast Times at Ridgemont High had come out and all those actors were sort of hitting it. And then The Outsiders came and all those guys were hitting it. And so there was always that feeling of like, yeah, I want to do the movie Sean Penn gets to do, and all of that. And I ended up doing, The Facts of Life. And if I did a movie, it was Return to Horror High. And, you go, in general, if you're in my industry, you're just trying to get a job most of your career. And if you're lucky enough to be able to choose, it's also about figuring out what to choose and what to do and what's right. And
You're freezing.
sometimes,
I'm freezing up.
and sometimes you do it right and sometimes you do it wrong,
Well, you would have made a great Jeff Spicoli.
Well, I was as dumb as he was, that's for sure.